Welcome back to an unexpected art lesson where we talk about the art and impact of Vincent van Gogh. It's adding art and whimsy into the world. The world needs more whimsy. That's why I'm writing cozy fantasy.
Hard pressed to disagree there. So I won't. Ha!
Good. Smart.
I have my moments. Some would say are few and far between.
I would say those people are underestimating you. Going back to the skeleton with the purple crystals coming out of its head, this is a different image than the one I was referring to earlier, but it might be meant to be the same skeleton. It looks like it's done on a wall as opposed to the thinner side of a building, and there is just the mess of the silver and the purple and the gold with the line art that is in front of the skeleton's head makes me think of very like anime, cartoon, action, fight scene something.
Oh yeah, I could totally see that.
And the sort of cartoony appearance next to the very realistic looking skeleton with its very realistic looking crystals growing out of it. Just lovely variety.
Exactly, and this is, again, another hallmark of how Van Gogh did blend the real and the surreal into his images. It's that idea that you're crafting worlds, and sometimes they can be realistic, sometimes they can be highly stylized.
Would say this is an example that artists showing how they see the world, but let's be real, all artists do that in some way. We make art to show the world how we see the world.
That is both informative and terrifying.
Or how we see different aspects of the world, or using the art to highlight different aspects of the world. Just wanted to throw that out there for whenever I start writing horror, because I promise I'm perfectly safe and sane. I just have a weirdly vivid imagination that goes in strange directions sometimes.
That is a very accurate point. It does kind of lead into the next section about thematic connections and the tortured artist archetype. Wow.
It does look like it would be pronounced archetype, but no, it's archetype, and tortured artist archetype is something you can see everywhere. So much in media, in all forms of media, and in how people present themselves too. The archetype of the tortured artist, the creative visionary who struggles with inner demons and uses art as a form of catharsis and healing. Let's be real, that's all of us. We are all different versions of neurospicy. Got to explain neurospicy to my mother earlier today, and I'm like, let's be real, neurotypical, I don't know how much that actually exists. There's just differing levels. It's all subjective. But the tortured artist is an archetype that Van Gogh embodied in his life and his work, pouring his struggles with depression, addiction, and mental illness onto the canvas in a feverish burst of creative energy. Reminds me of, we talked earlier about the scene where it was the painting of the TARDIS exploding in the style of A Starry Night. When we see the moment in the show where Riversong is taking the painting and knows she has to make sure the doctor can see it, you can tell Van Gogh is struggling with something. He is inconsolable. He is babbling. It looks almost like he's having some sort of a breakdown trying to process what he's saying, which is the TARDIS exploding in every moment across time and space and breaking time. I think there was a lot going on with that, but it's also, we see this archetype in the Psychonauts through characters like Edgar Tegley and Fred Bonaparte, artists whose mind are haunted by trauma and obsession, but find some kind of redemption through the power of creativity. There's something about creating and putting things into visual art or words or spoken words, something about getting things out there in that form of expression, whether you are expressing it directly or kind of dancing around it until you figure out exactly what it is you're struggling with. That's such an important part of creativity and art, and it's so good for you. In the world of street art, this archetype takes on a special resonance. For many street artists, creating public art isn't just a form of self-expression. It's a way to reclaim public spaces, to assert your identity in a world that often marginalizes and oppresses you. But it's a way to find community and connection in a society that can feel isolating and alienating. This is why we support doing art and art therapy, and we should start doing shoutouts for different art therapy programs and art education and art mental health support. We should, note to self, start finding people I can interview to talk about that, because that would be really fun.
That does sound like a solid endeavor.
Would you say that you find art to be helpful and cathartic with the things you have struggled with?
That's a loaded question. I feel art definitely does have a valid outlet for catharsis. In my life, I have had a lot of trauma and misfortunate things that have occurred, and sometimes the idea of using art and writing to tell a story about something that would allow you to process or kind of move forward in a way that giving it that form is a way of making your own hero of something. That you can tell that story. You can kind of say, you know what, if it can work here, I can do this.
Well said.
Thank you.
I've heard you mention taking bits of yourself back.
Yeah.
Using art to fight back, using art as a form of a little rebellion to help inspire people. I know for me, writing is how I make sense of things. It's how I come to understand the world. It's how I come to understand myself. I use it to deal with and process some of the negative things going on in the world, because the world is a dumpster fire, but we're stuck here, so we gotta find some way to make the best of it. Using writing and art as a way to process that and find a good way to make a difference. Figure out how I feel, what it is that I think, what it is that I might be struggling with. Finding a way to make something good of the hand that I have been dealt. Because we know the house always wins, but play the hand you've dealt doesn't have to end bad for you. You make the best of what you've got.
House may always win, but you don't have to go down in flames on their terms.
Exactly. And a little bit can make a big difference. And even if your work is never given the credit it deserves in your lifetime, you never know when you'll be like the next Van Gogh, what ripple effect your creation will have. Even if you aren't the next Van Gogh, even if there's just one person who sees your work and has a little bit of a better day, that's a ripple effect. They talk about random acts of kindness, paying it forward, those small things that can keep going and going and going.
Exactly, it's that little rebellion that can sometimes help keep that person going.
Yeah. Small acts of kindness, small acts of creation and creativity and inspiration can make a huge difference. And it might go on to inspire someone who will do a bigger act. And then someone else will do a bigger act. And that's what changes the world. That's what kind of makes things better, helps connect people.
I quite literally could not have said it better.
I'm surprised with how eloquent I am today. But I have also been working a lot on my cozy stories, which I tend to be a little bit purple with my prose. Because it's fun to write lighthearted, fluffy things. Where people are open and honest with their feelings and emotional maturity. And we're just all in this mess together, and we're gonna make it's gonna be nice.
That is what kind of leads us to the conclusion of the enduring power of art. In the end, what connects Van Gogh, Psychonauts, and street art is the enduring power of creativity to transform the world around us and the world within us. Whether it's a painting that captures the beauty and terror of the natural world, such as a squirrel with a spray paint can, a game that lets us explore the depths of the human psyche, which, again, I still to this very day say the super cheerful agent having the nightmare head, that was a good trick. Or a mural that does transform a blighted city block into a vibrant work of art. These works remind us of the incredible resilience and vitality of the human spirit. It's what reminds us that even in the darkest of times, when we feel most lost and alone, art has the power to heal, to inspire, and even connect us to something greater than ourselves. And they do remind us that the legacy of visionaries like Van Gogh do live on, not just in the halls of museums, but in life, in the chaos, in the endlessly created world outside of our minds and streets. So next time anyone of you feels that you're struggling with your own inner demon, just remember the lesson of Van Gogh. And I don't mean the ear thing, but more in the realm of Van Gogh, Psychonauts, and street artists like Smug One and Cobra, that creativity isn't just a luxury. It's a necessity. It's a tool for navigating the twists and turns of the human experience. And remember, no matter how dark the night may seem, there's always that potential for the new dawn, a new vision, a new work that may just help push somebody over to looking on the bright side. And yes, it did hurt me to write that.
That's something we're working on. We'll get you there. You will come to accept this. That your work brings inspiration, Watson. And yours does too, listener.
Precisely.
Actually, something this makes me think about is this past weekend. So, we're around the 25th anniversary of the first Lord of the Rings movie. So, to kind of celebrate, a lot of theaters are doing these special showings where you can go see the the extended edition, which those are a good 3 to 4 hours long. That's a long sit. But they also have these little extras at the beginning where it's a message from Peter Jackson, the director, talking about art inspired by someone struggling with mental health. If I'm remembering correctly, I think Tolkien suffered from PTSD. He had shell shock from his time in the war, and a lot of that kind of inspired the writing of The Lord of the Rings. Although, if I'm remembering correctly, it also got written down because his child kept calling him out for getting the details wrong when he told the story, so he had to write it down. And that just turned into a whole big thing. But those movies, on top of just being visually stunning and carrying these deeply, there are some heavy, dark moments, but there is always light, there's always hope, there's always that good thing worth fighting for. So many amazing quotes by Samwise Gamgee. He's the best. Everyone needs one of those. But when we were watching the end of the third one, when Frodo leaves, I remembered back when I was little watching it. That just something about the way that ended struck something with me. And it's why I kind of have an obsession with what happens to the hero after they save the world? What do you do? I mean, the story's never really over, but how do you go back to it after all of that? And that's inspired me to inspired heavily a lot of the stories that I've worked on, and it feeds into a lot of me as a writer, and also that fighting back against the darkness, always having that little bit of hope. I also really like playing around with prophecies because I'm a big believer in you choose your own fate. Yes, it's a prophecy, but that's just a possibility, and that doesn't define me, and it's not going to define me because I get to choose. That also gives you room to play with self-fulfilling prophecies, which are fun at another level. That's just an example of how that inspiration can be spread.
Mm-hmm.
Also, if you haven't seen the extended edition of Lord of the Rings, it's so worth it. There were some scenes that were cut out that I'm like, okay, that was really hugely important. Why did you cut that out? Especially in the Two Towers. There were a couple scenes in there where I'm like, that had so much important plot to it. I'm sad they had to cut it out from the theatrical cut. But it was also interesting getting to hear some of the story of behind the scenes from Peter Jackson, of how they made those films happen, and they were also filmed all at once.
That's the most impressive part.
Yeah. They didn't, take a couple years off between each film. They did it all at once.
Damn.
And then released it bit after bit. They released one at a time over the years, which I'm like, that's cool and impressive.
I did not actually know that. I always thought they were made consecutively, not concurrently.
No, they were being worked on at the same time, and sometimes, in the morning, they'd film this scene from this movie, and then in the evening, they'd be filming this scene from this movie. Yeah, it's fascinating. It's amazing what artists can get done, and also, they were taking a big leap with that. There was no guarantee that the first movie wouldn't be a flop. And now, everyone at least knows Lord of the Rings. They may not know the story, they may not have seen the movies, probably haven't read the books, so the books are actually pretty good. But everyone knows. Because artists took a chance.
Mm-hmm.
Getting back to Van Gogh, though, now that I've very, very effectively sidetracked us into my special interest and obsession with Lord of the Rings and why I love fantasy, if you're feeling inspired by this conversation about the works of Van Gogh, the Psychonauts, and the street artists who were inspired by Van Gogh, as well as any other tangents we've gone on, because there's always many, there are plenty of ways to explore these themes further. You could start by visiting your local art museum and spend some time with Van Gogh's paintings. Your local art museum might not have one, depending on where you live, but there will be work that you can draw inspiration from. Take time to really look at the work and look at the characters and look at the eyes. Study the things that stick out to you and find those smaller details that the artist does that just really makes it something beautiful. Look beyond just the famous images to see the world through the eyes of the artist, to feel the energy and emotion that pulses through every brushstroke, every line drawn by the pencil, every key typed onto a page. Because oh boy is it difficult to convey art and emotion with words on a page. But we do it. Play through the Psychonauts and pay attention to the way the game uses visual design and storytelling to explore themes of mental health and creativity. You can also note the difference in how it's presented in the first game versus the second game, as not only was there a pretty big leap in the technology to help create higher quality, more technically advanced art, more robust graphical design, as well as the approaches to mental health. Think about how the game's unique approach to level design and characterization creates a sense of psychological depth and complexity. Also, I can't help but wonder if some of the things in Psychonauts could have been taken and applied to help people understand psychology. I know when Inside Out came out, different emotions controlling the brain, a lot of therapists and psychologists and counselors were able to use that to help connect with children and help them understand their emotions on a level that they didn't have the tools to do before.
Huh.
It's a small thing, but it's genius. Also, fun fact, if you're watching that movie, you kind of pay attention that in Riley, the girl's brain, there's not really one emotion that is in charge. They're all kind of fighting around to be in charge, but in her dad's brain, it's very chill in business, but anger's in the main seat. So dad's dealt with anger issues, but he's got it under control. For the mom, it's sadness. She has struggled with depression, but she's had it under control. She's dealt with it. She's processed it. It's just a fascinating thing to pay attention to. I haven't seen the second one, but it's definitely got to have some great commentary on growing up and how your emotions and memories develop as you get older.
That is fascinating. I did not know that about the first movie.
Yeah, it's amazing what you find when you're just randomly scrolling through Pinterest and live on the internet and absorb all kinds of information that originally came from Tumblr.
Ah, yes.
So I guess that's another way you can interact with it. Just look at memes and conversations on Tumblr. Different places where people have these conversations where they deep dive into the potential meaning and implication and what we can take from this art that we are consuming and discussing. And then you also get connected with the community. Another way to get connected with the community is take a walk through your city and keep an eye out for street art. Look for murals, graffiti, installations that use bold colors and expressive techniques and unconventional materials to create a sense of energy and immediacy. You might also see statues, and I remember last time I was walking around my local downtown area, on one of the benches they had this little like Christmas tree shaped into a person that looked like it was reading a newspaper.
Oh, cool.
Just little things like that are so fun and clever, and think about how these works reflect the struggles and triumphs of the communities they represent and what it might mean to the person who made it. And most important of all, embrace your own creativity in whatever form it takes. Whether you're a painter, a writer, a musician, or just someone who doodles in the margins of your notebook like me. Embrace it. Remember that art is a powerful tool for self-expression and healing and understanding yourself and just getting emotions out. Or sometimes you have to doodle in the margins of your notebook to be able to pay attention to a conversation. Or you have to sit there and knit or crochet to be able to pay attention to a conversation, and especially in work meetings. Also remember, you don't need to be a tortured genius to create something beautiful and meaningful. You don't have to have gone through all of the trauma. Trauma can inform and inspire art, but also, you don't need it. Not being a tortured, starving artist does not invalidate your art. Also, being the broke, tortured, starving artist does not invalidate your art or your worth as a person. You don't need to be what people expect of an artist. You just need to be able to be willing to take the leap and trust in the power of your own imagination. And you never know where it's gonna take you. Because at the end of the day, that's what Van Gogh, the people behind Psychonauts, all the other famous artists and street artists and painters and writers and musicians of the world are all about. That's how they did it. They took a leap. They embraced the courage to create, to express, and to leave their mark on the world in whatever way they can. And you can do the same. So go do it. Watson, you want to give some other potential examples of how people can go and start embracing their creativity? Something that they can maybe start doing today or this week or this month? Beyond just going back to our conversation about drawing and building your drawing habits?
If you're somebody who enjoys the comedic, write a story about the adventures of a squirrel with a spray can. If you're somebody who prefers more serious, write the adventures of a squirrel taking a journey with their trusty spray can through Middle-earth. I do serious terribly.
Make the art you want to make.
Precisely. Make the art that speaks to you.
Do one thing every day to embrace your creativity, even if it's something small.
Like putting a silly hat on a cat.
Exactly. Just be aware that the cat is probably going to try and claw you, and be prepared, because that's going to hurt. Unless you are drawing a cat with a silly hat.
Yes.
Then you're probably safe.
I would recommend drawing the cat with a silly hat over putting a silly hat on a cat.
And now we have transitioned over into Dr. Seuss.
Oh, God.
That's a whole other thing. The commentary that man did with his art. Just perfection.
Highly agree. All right. Till next time, folks.
Until next time, go forth, make art, and share it with us. Thanks for listening to An Unexpected Art Lesson, the show where we talk about everything you didn't know about art. This week, continuing to focus on the art and impact of Vincent van Gogh. If you like what we're doing, you can follow us on social media and join the conversation over at An Unexpected Art Lesson on Threads, Blue Sky, and Substack. And you can also support us over on Patreon. Get early access to episodes and other fun things at patreon.com/anunexpectedartlesson.